What's up, everybody? Paco here, and marriage is awesome. It's also really hard and really confusing at times, but today we're sitting down with Chuck Moore. Chuck has been married for 42 years. He's a marriage coach, and he's gonna give us some expert advice on how to do marriage and do it well. One of the biggest flashpoints in marriage, sex, right? So, spouse is in the mood, I'm not. I'm in the mood, my spouse is not. How do we approach this in marriage? Like, how do you approach sex in marriage? Especially when you're like on different pages on when and where and how and all those things.
Right. So we'll do a few minutes on sex, which is probably a lot longer than most guys can last. We'll see if they can listen to it. So, all right. So in truth, every couple has differences on sex. Every couple has a different sex urges, desires, different needs, different ways of going about it. Typically, both men and women have different approaches to sex. Just it's a gender thing for most people. So sex is both an incredible gift and a confounding experience. So like most things in marriage, we don't do this, but a critical thing about sex is to talk about sex. To talk about sex before sex, to talk about sex during sex, and to talk about sex after sex. But virtually no couple does. Because sex was made, I mean, if you believe in God, one of the questions you probably have to wrestle with is, why is sex so difficult and so demanding and so unavailable, when sometimes it's so wonderful, so completing, the most amazing thing we've ever experienced, and then it's not. And often when we get into difficult places with sex, we give up. We give up in a level of despair, maybe shame, whatever. So what's critical is that we love each other enough and we treat sex for the gift that it is, but the fact that we need to invest in that gift to make it work. So one of the best moments in my marriage, so my wife loves the beach. I don't like the beach. My wife likes warm water. I don't like heat. So for one of our wedding anniversaries, I decided to go to the Caribbean where the water was warm. I spent the extra money to get the room that was overlooking the ocean with a balcony. So the first day, we're walking away from that experience, the very first day, walking across the beach, going to breakfast, and she looks at me and says, "Our sex life sucks." So my first response to that was, can we not have this conversation right now? We're going to a week's vacation. It's our first moment. Can we put this off until we get home? Because I'm that kind of loving guy. And she just looked at me, she said, touch this, lick that, and you're done. It's it's not working for me. I was shocked, and then I began to kind of laugh. And I realized, well, I'm kind of a businessman. I worked for a major corporation. I just boiled sex down to its most important elements, and I knew the most important customer was me, and what was wrong with that? I mean, if you can get sex done in half the time, isn't that better?
It's efficient.
It is efficient, absolutely. So, but that caused us to get into what we needed, which is a very open conversation about us, about our past, about our needs, about what is sex, and then I quickly began to understand from her questions and her point of views that I actually didn't know anything about sex. I mean, everything was sexualized. I knew a lot about sex. I just didn't know anything about sexual intimacy.
There's a difference.
So I would say most of what we understand and is generally available, certainly in America, about sex has nothing to do with sexual intimacy. And in fact, it's a blind alley. It leads us to the wrong places. And can get us stuck in the wrong places. I'm 67, my wife is 65, been married 42 years. People have asked us, what is sex like? It is very different than when we were 25, without a doubt. But the best sex I'm going to have is the next time I have sex with my wife, because we have a level of intimacy and connection now, which is renewing. because it's not just based on the physical.
Yeah.
So this will be a challenging thing, perhaps, for me to say, but sex is primarily spiritual. Secondly, it's relational. And thirdly, it's physical. And as a guy, I kind of represent most guys. I attack sex from the physical, and most guys do. Nothing wrong with that, but I totally ignored the spiritual. I was willing to dip into the relational as long as I got the physical fast and furiously. Women often look at sex from a relational standpoint first. You know, they're concerned about things that is not even safety, security. I'm like, sweetheart, look at that roof. I mean, we could make love on the roof. I mean, we've made love in crazy, crazy places. But that's rarely what women are interested in. They're interested in a relational connection from which the physical flows, and rarely do people think about the spiritual elements of sexual intimacy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the entry point for a guy on sex is just strictly physical first, for most guys.
Right.
And for women, it's a relational thing, and so without one or the other, you're in trouble, you're missing, yeah.
Exactly right.